daily ritual, if it becomes a part of how one views architecture and experiences it, then that's essential. It's not a Band-Aid. It's not just kind of a green fix, more or less. I think you have to deal. These tend to be green fixes in the way you present them, right? The window, the light. These are all things that we know. But what's more intrinsic, what's more valued, is that didactical aspect of how the child kind of operates within this environment. So I think you set up a strategy to think about that, and that means very good.
I'd like to return one more time to the catalyst, if I could. It seems to me you positioned, and this is a question, can I, as a citizen or a person, don't have to be a citizen, a person in this area, can I, with my group of people, whoever they are, use the theater? Or is the theater only for the school? I mean, not during when the school is in session, but in the evening, could I use the theater?
You know, I keep going back and forth with that, and I like the idea for it to be public use after the school is in session. But I wasn't necessarily planning it to be that way just because of the levels of privacy.
Yeah, I understand in Montessori they're very concerned about, you know, that sort of thing. But I was thinking maybe when the school wasn't, the children weren't there, in the evening, for example, or maybe on the weekend, could the theater be? I'm trying to get back to the thing Robertson was talking about, the catalyst. Is it not just that the theater could be, or the dance place could be something that could be used by the community? Because clearly the market is, and these little rendering you have here, it sort of tries to explain how the market works, right? This kind of thing, which I really like. I think that could also be a way to animate the theater and the dance piece, and then it can also give it, make it have a little more character, and be more maybe associated with the city as well, like sort of a bridge between the city and the school.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, that is, yeah, it's pretty typical, but in probably almost any country.
That's true.
In school, particularly urban schools, they're kind of this cross-used after hours. And it kind of lets the school become part of the community more. Very easy thing to do.
Yeah, and you've kind of structured formal aspects of the building in a way that actually there could be a separate condition that operates both separately and also kind of with the school. Circumstances, for example, the corner piece. You know, it can maintain privacy at certain moments, but also can interact directly with peripheral things outside. So I think you start to set that strategy. I think you might have to make some commitments to how that starts to work. There seems to be some of the tentativeness about how you're approaching that, but that's part of the process. I had no idea the term you had.
This is in Italy.
Oh, that's in Italy.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry.
That was a bit of a non sequitur.
Sorry, I didn't expect. Yeah, this piece, the number.
Because I've seen this.
Yeah, actually, it was duplicated in that.
Okay, that was a stupid.
No, it's not.
No. I didn't separate it well enough.
It's like all of a sudden, like in one jump.
I know.
1920s.
Okay, one last thing. I really think that this point Robinson brings up about the structuring of the itinerary through the building, and you set it up, and I think the diagram of the location of pieces is really clearly organized. It's the nuances and subtleties of how you move from one to the other, how the bridge works over to the roof, how you move back down as well as up into the building, which I think could use a little more thought. You've sort of been working on it in the red diagram over there. Is that the one on the right?
Yeah, that's circulation. It's
Yeah,
like how you move.
Right, that's how you move in the floor plate, but I was thinking how you move this way.
Oh, yeah.
The axis.
I should have, I apologize not showing that. The main vertical circulations is through the stairwell, and then there's another stairwell in here.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about one of the reasons we're doing the MRPs at this time is you have just a little bit of time to sort of add just a few things to refine and tweak this before the document is due. I think these are a couple of things that might be worked on, the elevations and the surfaces and the sequence that I moving through the building.
And also, I think you've got a scale problem with this corner, because I think it could be a little bit more substantial. It could actually act as a transfer moment, right? I mean, if you're it could be about circulation. You know, and you could bring people to it and then around and through. So it could be, I think, a little more dynamic in that way. There's a certain static quality to those two pieces, and I think that Professor Gunderson is suggesting as well because of its materiality. I think we need to address kind of the holistic aspect of those materials and then start to work that relative to program. I think that would help you, especially as far as the skinning of it, because I'm very excited about how you deal with the tropical environment. I mean, you set up the way of looking at it traditionally, but we haven't quite taken into how you readdress it within the context of your program. It tends to be kind of very specific moments about just letting light in, okay, instead of it operating in a bigger fashion relative to the sustained language you have. But I can see it getting a little bit taller there. I mean, there's a big scale shift there, I think.
Well, the reason why I wanted this to be more of a lower level, it matches with the housing scale right here, and it also provides this aperture for ventilation and the ocean breeze to kind of flow through.
I think one way to address that is to not make this side solid. I think if it was more of almost a gateway, a market gateway greeting place, I don't think we'd be as concerned about the height. Because it would be more of an entry point, a visible entry point of the project.
Yeah, I mean, you've gone from what looks to be a columnar structure, basically, throughout the column grid, and then to a barren wall system. I think you really have to think about the dialogue. There's also, I mean, just this is a matter of detail, which I think, you start to solve. But situations like this, I think you have to think, I remember my most painful moment as a child, running into a column and there's a fire alarm one time, and all the doors open. It's pretty stupid, but nevertheless, it was there. And it's kind of reminds me of that bingo, there it is, we're all kind of trying to get out and move bang. So, I mean, these kinds of small details, obviously, are things that have to be tweaked and stuff. But again, the relationship between this is a working louver and that is a wall, haunts back. This is a language and is a way of construction that I think you really have to rethink.
That's a pretty funny end.
It's true, too. It is really true.
Yeah, one last thing, that what you see from back here is you see this really dense, visually active wall right here that you maybe didn't speak a lot about, which is this thing.
Yes.
And I think, again, what we're looking at, particularly because of the precedents, I think you put a lot of energy into that, and maybe need to put, or we do need to put more energy into what this is about. Because in a way, these surfaces are a lot more important in terms of the operation of the school. That's a kind of one very specific kind of sculpture. And the other is much more pervasive, much more connected to the kind of history of architecture and culture that you've been looking at.
Yeah, I mean, this drawing here, this stuff, okay, the way it's starting to kind of work is much more, I think, evocative of the ideas that you have, as far as the movement of the building. It suggests a way of reading the building that works directly with your program. And so it's active, and I think that you're suggesting that the building is active, and this tends to be very static, and it's an idea of containment and also how you're working with these sustainable, or I think, new architectural systems that suggest another way of looking at sustainability in the environment. So, I mean, that drawing, I feel it. I feel just the way you constructed it, what you put there, not necessarily the color, but just its interaction with other things. So that, I think, you could probably invest into these drawings and thinking about the process of this.
Are you suggesting also to kind of make this a little bit more open, just like the ground floor? Or?
I'm not sure. I think there are very specific things that you have to consider relative to your program. But I'm saying that there is a observable liveliness to this piece right here where this isn't. And,
the answer is yes. I think very simply, yes. I think it should be a little more porous, because I think that's what's suggested in the model. And what we're doing is, you've made a model, you've made these drawings, and they're not exactly matching one-to-one. And we're trying to find the place that we think it should, it's a little more successful. So I'm sort of imagining more the development of the vocabulary in the model, because I think sometimes